Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Perfect World based on novel. So let's start. Soon after, everyone discovered that the two heavenly deities seemed to have been immersed in a great dream. They suddenly cried out, and then they fiercely shook their heads. After giving each other a look, both of them were overwhelmed with shock. Someone suppressed the Tao bell, not allowing it to ring. A heavenly deity trembled inwardly as he said softly, "Things have already developed this far, without our notice." The other heavenly deity was shocked. Only when the ninth Tao bell's sound waves spread outwards would Goddess Academy's most powerful figures be startled. Just now, someone had suppressed it. Hurry and head for Goddess Hall. The two turned around and left. In the rear, when the students heard those sentences, they all found this difficult to believe. They felt a wave of lingering fear, feeling that something enormous was happening. Strange things were happening all at once, and unforeseen events were taking place in succession. Someone successfully passed through the trial of heaven. Within Goddess Hall, an elder inquired, "Succeeded, but he didn't enter my courtyard. We are harboring suspicions that that person returned." A heavenly deity said with a trembling voice, "What?" Inside Goddess Academy, heaven overflowing waves were billowing. Several streaks of radiance erupted into the skies. That was the blood energy of the most powerful experts. This day, a great sensation swept through the academy that was difficult to calm. The void distorted. Hazy light emerged. The elder wearing golden Tao robes brought Shahao away. They descended into a mountain region. "Senior, are these the academy depths?" Shahao was curious. "Not really, but the distance is quite close," said the elder. Soon after, Shahao was shocked. He saw an enormous gated courtyard in front of him that rushed into the clouds. These gates were too grand and majestic. Then, when he raised his head, he saw an inscribed tablet with 4 ancient words. "Supreme Being Tao Right." Shahao's mind trembled. Why wasn't there the word goddess? Could it be that the elder's place of seclusion used this name? However, it seemed too domineering and powerful. Meanwhile, he immediately thought of Supreme Palace. That inheritance only had a single person each generation. It was known as an unmatched inheritance that stood against Immortal Palace for many generations. Shahao began to have second thoughts. Was Goddess Academy this famous? The academy was indeed extremely powerful with the immortal engravings, but if one were to say that it overlooked the 3,000 provinces, and was the higher realm's greatest inheritance, Shahao would become quite doubtful, feeling that this was a bit too much. There were countless schools of thought, and all of these sects contended for supremacy. Who dared to call themselves the absolute best, the highest in this world? Are you willing to enter my sect and fight for it? The elder asked with a dignified voice. Strands of chaotic energy flowed down from the top of his head. He truly looked like a lord of deities that could overlook all living things. Shahao was a bit conflicted, but he braced himself and said, "I'm willing." For the tribulation crossing Divine Lotus, he would temporarily put aside anything. Things like integrity and moral principles, he'll deal with after he had his time in that pond. If he really did leave, then he'll just properly compensate Goddess Academy at worst. The elder nodded. His image was dignified, giving off the grandeur of a supreme existence. "Remember, you are my Tao Right's descendant. If it cannot become the greatest under the heavens, then you will be banished." Shahao cursed silently. This requirement was just too high. Did Goddess Academy really have this type of confidence? How could all of the disciples that came out from it have this type of world-ruling mentality? Meanwhile, he also became a bit suspicious. Why didn't he mention Goddess Academy and always say Tao Right? "Senior, is this the core region of Goddess Academy?" He couldn't help but ask. It is not Goddess Academy's core region, instead transcending above. The elder was deadly earnest. His image was dignified as he replied. "What is so good about the tribulation crossing Divine Lotus? Comparatively speaking, that toy is just something to feed pigs. You don't have to care too much about it." The elder said, "What?" Shahao's eyes widened. This elder's words were too excessive, and talking too big, right? One has to understand that this was something all heavenly deities wanted to get their hands on, willing to risk life and limb for it. We've gotten sidetracked. The elder coughed and said, All you have to know is that in the past, my sect had the higher realm's first spiritual root. Shahao was a bit stupefied. Goddess Academy previously grasped the first spiritual root. He quickly thought of that stalk of medicine from the past that was planted in the valley in the lower realm, protected by countless formations. The little pagoda had previously said that it was the first holy medicine. If one wanted to find something comparable to it, they had to enter the boundless uninhabited depths. Could it be that spiritual medicine? Rumors had it that it was planted by someone from the higher realms. During the heaven and earth great calamity, there were indeed many experts that fought a great battle, fighting fiercely there over it. It should have been lost by now, right? Shahao said softly. He could tell from the elder's tone. It will be brought back sooner or later. The elder's eyes were deep as he gazed into the limits of the heavens. A wave of cold and desolate aura surged. Then let's still talk about the tribulation crossing divine lotus first. Shahao muttered with a voice so soft that it was almost inaudible. His heart was worried, beating a bit fast. Do you want to bathe with those girls that bad? Do you see your future prospects? The elder had a smile that wasn't a smile on his face as he scolded. Sweet and virtuous women, a person of noble character will find them easily. Shahao's mouth was firm. I am now a bit hesitant. If someone with such an illustrious reputation, like me, taught a flower stealer, wouldn't my dignity be tarnished? The elder muttered to himself. Let's just establish the oath here. The elder said seriously. There was an oath involved too. What kind of binding force was there? Shahao inwardly twitched his lips, not worrying about it too much. Make the oath with me, starting now. The elder said. An oath prayer that wasn't long, but definitely extremely strict was completed. Then, the elder had Shahao drop some of his essence blood on the document, and then it was set aflame. What is this for? Shahao was confused. This is a curse. Should you abandon the sect, then you will receive heavenly punishment, forever falling into a world of disaster, and die after suffering all types of torment. The elder said indifferently, What? Is there a need for such fierceness and viciousness? Shahao was stupefied. Why did he feel like he had climbed aboard a pirate ship? He was actually cursed as a limitation. What is it? You already wish to abandon the sect. The elder looked at him with a smile and then reminded, the curse is quite formidable, you know. Shahao looked at him with a stupefied expression. He felt more and more like he had been careless. This elder looked kind with an immortal aura and Tao body, but that didn't seem to actually be the case. All right. Since you entered my sect, you should solemnly observe the oath, the elder said. Senior, what do I call your distinguished self? Shahao asked. Chi Daolin. The elder spoke with a smile, and then while looking at him, he added, you heard of this name before. For some reason, Shahao felt like the elder gave off a slight feeling of relief. Was this his misconception? Goddess Academy's old academy head, or guardian spirit even had shameful matters. While standing in front of the vast great gate and gazing inwards, what one saw was not groups of palaces, but instead a mountain range that stretched as far as the eye could see as well as drifting clouds. It was a majestic and natural sight. This is the Academy's Tao, right? It is this large? Shahao asked. Chi Daolin smiled and said, how large the heart is, that is how large the world will be, as well as how large our Tao right will be. My spirit is indomitable. Shahao said, is that so? Then this Tao right will be boundless. Come with me, I will show you around, Chi Daolin said. His great sleeve moved, bringing Shahao through the skies. Beneath his feet, mountains and rivers retreated. Great rivers were like pearls, long rivers like thin ribbons. They quickly headed for the distance, immediately crossing who knew how many tens of thousands of li. Even someone as powerful as Shahao felt as if his ears were rumbling and his eyes hurting. It was because the speed was just too fast. Wind tore at his face like blades, and his sleeves felt like they were about to go up in flames. Senior, where are we going? Why do I feel like this isn't right? Even if Goddess Academy was 10,000 times larger, it still shouldn't be able to contain this place. Shahao was skeptical. Then, he was stupefied, because he saw a few cities as well as other creatures' residences. This was clearly not some Tao rights territory. He became suspicious. Was this elder tricking him? Then senior, let's find a place to rest our feet. The Tao right is so great, and even the 3,000 provinces is our backyard. Are we going to sit for a while at Immortal Palace, or go into isolation inside some emperor clan? Shahao asked. Immortal Palace, that rotten place will only become a latrine pit in the future. Qi Daolin said. His eyes were filled with splendor. This was the first time his emotions leaked outwards. With a shua sound, he brought Shahao into an indistinct space, returning to the mountain gate they left not too long ago. Then, with a point of his finger, a mountain peak shone, and then an enormous palace unexpectedly appeared that was like the Temple of Heaven. What kind of place exactly is this inside of Goddess Academy? Or is it not even related? Shahao asked with a quiet voice. In the future, you do not need to bring up Goddess Academy. Just consider yourself a person of supreme being Dao, right? Qi Daolin smiled and said, why is that? Shahao was confused. Was there an academy head, or a guardian spirit that wasn't willing to mention his own inheritance? Now that you entered supreme being Dao, right, you've transcended Goddess Academy. Remember that this is the route, regardless of all else. Qi Daolin strictly warned. He then said, that is to say, it is enough as long as you treat yourself as supreme being Dao Right's disciple. Everything else can all be forgotten. Shahao was shocked. His face was filled with doubt. Why did he feel that things weren't quite right? Are we the only two here? He asked, what kind of place do you think supreme being Dao Right is? A place anyone can enter. Every generation, there is only a single disciple. In principle, before you are expelled from the sect, there cannot be a second inheritor. Qi Daolin said. Shahao became more and more doubtful. Damn it. Could it be that he was trafficked off? No matter what questions you have in cultivation, you can always consult me. Of course, this does not include the concrete methods, but instead broader themes. You will have to wait 2 days before the true unmatched Dao will be passed down. Qi Daolin said, unmatched Dao. Shahao's mind was stirred up. He actually really wanted to ask whether it was the true primordial records, transcendence piece. The extreme art that can sweep through all 3,000 provinces can naturally be called unmatched, Qi Daolin said proudly. Of course, he wouldn't pass down the inheritance now. Shahao carefully thought to himself. He thought of the 9 dragon skeletons, as well as that bronze ancient coffin. He then asked, Senior, are there reincarnated beings in this world? Only, regarding a being's reincarnation, there was no concrete proof. There had never been anyone that truly understood it, and it might just be a few taboo existences wishful dreaming, wishing for the next life. Qi Daolin frowned, and then he said, this problem is quite complex. It is difficult for others to answer, but I can clearly tell you that there is definitely no one in this world who can unendingly reincarnate. Shahao was speechless. He thought to himself, his own precious technique's name reincarnation. He had reached the conclusion that he might be able to transcend even a step further, but he didn't know what would happen. Is there no reincarnation? He asked softly, there is reincarnation. Qi Daolin said, doesn't this contradict with what you said? Shahao was stunned, it does not. Qi Tuo spoke. He looked into the distance, and then he spoke in an unhurried and profound manner. There are no reincarnated beings, but there might be old instances of reincarnation. Shahao didn't say anything. He thought of the scene he saw in the bronze coffin, and then he said, during the immortal ancient era, there were immortals that descended into this world. Could it be that even when they died in battle, there is no way for them to reincarnate and resurrect? Young one, you are thinking too much. The dead are dead, everything becoming nothing. How can there be anyone that can transcend? If one absolutely insists on this, when they meet again, it will be several eras later. Okay. Shahao nodded. Do you have any other questions? Take note to ask broader questions, and not specific precious techniques. Qi Daolin asked. The immortal ancient era always discussed the immortal Dao, seeking the immortal techniques, yet in this world, it is always the divine Dao. What is weaker, and what is more powerful? Shahao asked. Youngster, you truly raise tough questions. Qi Daolin was shocked, and then he nodded. He asked Shahao to ask him broader questions precisely to see what kind of person he was and what kind of spirit he had in cultivation. After remaining silent for a moment, he said, all methods are different routes to the same destination, there is not much to distinguish what is stronger. However, there will definitely be great chaos in the future. You should just earnestly raise your cultivation. Where does the chaos lie? Shahao asked, in the distance. I can already feel that it is approaching. Qi Daolin's expression became grave. He looked into the limits of the horizon. What was hiding there? The boundless uninhabited area. What exactly is there out there? Shahao asked, the undying. Qi Daolin had these words for him, but his expression became serious, exceptionally grave. He put away his smile. Within Goddess Academy's palace, a group of people were stupefied. There were extremely powerful figures that were angry, absolutely furious as they roared. It is definitely that person, that notorious individual. Someone else voiced their agreement, saying, we're finished. A world-shocking genius was stolen by someone just like that. If he falls into that person's hands, then it truly is unknown what will happen in the future. Hurry and look for him, bring him back. Otherwise, an outstanding person will be ruined. Someone jumped to their feet. Only the old academy head sat there, sighing lightly. Sigh. How are we supposed to know where he went? He hadn't appeared for several thousand years already. Only heaven knows where he will bring that young man. Someone said helplessly, what do you all think? Will he run back to that small tattered mountain gate? An elder with eyes as bright as golden lamps said, go, let's take a look. Either way, it's better than sitting around, someone else said. Within the enormous palace, Qi Daolin helped dispel Shahao's doubts, expounding on many questions with broader themes. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes and said, let's go, this poor Daoist will bring you to find a few cultivation lands. From then on, you should start preparing yourself to learn my great methods. They disappeared from this place, vanishing from that place. Almost immediately after, the distant heavens split open, and 3 figures walked over. They inspected the world below, their brows wrinkling. He was just here, leaving a moment ago. Goddess Academy's Tao Protector spoke. Meanwhile, the previously grand and imposing entrance building was now tattered beyond recognition and completely ruined. That place was still level with heaven and towering into the clouds, but now, it was ruined to a near state of collapse. It was as different as night and day. Apart from this, the enormous palace on the mountain peak ahead also changed, turning into ruins. Broken walls stood within rubble, producing a miserable sight. They were about to be covered in the thriving weeds. If Shahao was here, he would definitely be stupefied. That despicable fella's cultivation has increased again. We are likely not his opponents, someone said. Are we supposed to just let him snatch my academy's exceptional genius like this? How many years has it been since someone like this has appeared? There were some who felt unwilling. Having Feng Wu is already enough. Moreover, didn't Qi Daolin also complete the heavenly staircase and stay behind? The old academy chief asked. That's because he wanted to steal from the teachers. He is a supreme being abandoning person. Someone said, forget it, let it be. The old academy head said. A cool breeze wafted through this area. This place became calm. Those figures disappeared. 2 days later, within a barren area, Shahao and Qi Daolin faced each other while sitting on the grit. I have 9 great divine abilities, and 5 great rebirth methods, as well as the Tao inheritances of various sects. What do you want to learn? Qi Daolin asked. When can I go to the immortal pond and see the tribulation crossing divine lotus? Shahao asked with a soft voice. He always had the feeling that he was being cheated by this person, truly not understanding your future prospects. If you don't cultivate a type of divine technique, you can forget about it. How can you engross yourself in women? Qi Daolin berated. Shahao was completely speechless. I'll learn the unmatched Tao. Didn't you say you would teach me? In the end, he clenched his teeth and said, I'll admit you have good taste. However, if you learn this type of technique, then you can forget about other precious techniques for now. One cannot become distracted, because it is too difficult. Qi Daolin said with a stern expression. Shahao was now truly a bit curious. What kind of technique was this exactly, to actually have so much importance attached to it? It is called 8/9 Heaven's Art. Qi Daolin said. Shahao was shocked. Was this old man speaking the truth? If he wasn't, he really was boasting a bit big. Strictly speaking, it is a technique that stirs on other precious techniques, a type of unmatched technique. Not understanding its importance at your level is forgivable. Chi Daolin gave Shahao a look as if he felt disinclined to lower himself to argue with him. Shahao's mind was shaken. He immediately remembered a type of legendary method that was known to shake the world. As expected, Chi Daolin also mentioned it. Have you heard of the 6 Dao reincarnation? That is a method for handling precious techniques. Through it, one will display 6 types of precious techniques and sweep through all before them, becoming unmatched under the skies. This I have heard of it. Shahao nodded. As for the 6 Dao reincarnation, this type of method really was too terrifying. He had learned about it even in the lower realms and yearned for it greatly. 6 Dao reincarnation is already considered mastering precious techniques and divine abilities, but as for this 8 ninth heavens, you can infer a bit of its taste from this name alone. Chi Daolin's eyes became deep. Shahao's eyes immediately lit up, and an incomparably yearning expression appeared on his face. Who was the one that established this? I've scoured the world for precious techniques, and researched all types of great methods. In the end, after going into isolation for 100,000 years, I finally established this method. Chi Daolin said proudly. However, when Shahao heard this, his face immediately fell, becoming somewhat disappointed. It was because he had always had his suspicions that this old thing was swindling him. Now, he was already cheated. This wasn't Goddess Academy at all, and just now, he heard him talking big again, so he naturally felt that he was bullshitting. Youngster, what kind of look is that? What are you trying to say? I was going to teach you an unmatched Dao, yet you have this kind of attitude. I guess you don't want to learn it anymore. Chi Daolin felt rather hurt, appearing quite angry. I'll learn. Shahao said. Regardless, he wanted to see what this so-called 8 ninth heavens art was like. What followed was suffering. Chi Daolin had him carry a large mountain on his back and run several tens of thousands of li every day. This was simply a torment from the underworld. I am telling you right now, if, after you finished your training under me and cannot reign supreme in your generation, I will personally end you, Chi Daolin said. Shahao was speechless. What kind of evil sect did he end up joining? I will arrange a few opponents for you. The first stage will be an equal fight. You need to slaughter Immortal Palace's inheritor. Are you capable of that? Chi Daolin asked. No problem. Shahao replied in a clear-cut manner. Good. Continue training. My technique will definitely shake up all 3,000 provinces of the higher realms, unmatched in the world. Undying, have you arrived? I am waiting. Chi Daolin narrowed his eyes and gazed into the skies. Undying. Shahao also narrowed his eyes. When they opened and closed, divine light flickered about. This wasn't the first time he heard this word. This was naturally related to many important things. He felt that this might not be pointing at a single person, but perhaps a group of creatures, or even a unique era. Perhaps it might even be something else that he didn't know anything about. As expected, when Chi Daolin finished talking, he became extremely quiet, not saying anything for a long time and continuously stared into the heavens, as if he wanted to see through the stellar river of outer space to gaze upon something else. You aren't allowed to goof off. You should go cultivate. Chi Daolin turned around and gave him a look. Then, he turned around to gaze towards the boundless stellar sky again. It's already so dark that it's the later part of the night, and you still want me to cultivate? It should be time to sit and comprehend bone texts, Shahao muttered. Hurry and go. Do you not want to study the 8 ninth heavens art? Maybe I should just directly sweep you out of the sect. Chi Daolin spoke expressionlessly. It was clear that his mood was quite terrible. Several days later, Shahao covered quite a wide area. Finally, that day, he entered a grassland that belonged to the common border of Fire Province and Goddess Province. It wasn't too far from Goddess Academy. I say, what is that? A mountain is moving. Someone was stunned, their face looking like they saw a ghost. This was especially the case for the students outside Goddess Academy, who were searching for divine awe. When they saw this scene, they were even more stupefied. An enormous mountain was frantically running, and its speed was so fast. This is a mountain deity. No, it's a mountain treasure. The great mountain acquired immortal essence and became a treasure, now developing intelligence. Hurry and chase it. As a result, this place became bustling with activity. Many people used their movement techniques to soar through the sky or speed through the great earth, chasing after it, capture it. Since it is a mountain deity, it will definitely have some earth element essence, a rare divine material. Shahao had no choice but to focus all of his energy on this, turning his flesh, bone texts, spirit, and others into one, turning into a streak of light while carrying this great mountain into the horizon. This result scared everyone until they were stupefied, unable to speak for a long time. This was just too strange. If that mountain flew, then that was that, but it was jolting up and down, running into the distance, moreover so quickly. What in the world was this? Several days later, Shahao sat down in exhaustion. He was quite resentful as he looked at Qi Daolin. This rotten old man actually made him run for 3 days and 3 nights. Go. As soon as Qi Daolin spat out this word, he was directly cut off by Shahao's howl of grief. Just kill me then. In the past, he was cursed by others as angering God and man alike, but today, he was suppressed by another in such a miserable manner. He had a feeling that those who do bad things will be treated similarly by others, leaving him a bit speechless. Shahao truly couldn't take it anymore. This was too dry and dull, running crazily with the mountain on his back day in and out. He was already tired to death. I was saying that you can go and rest to save up energy. When cultivating the Tao, one naturally needs to understand how to relax. Only after stretching and relaxing can one reach the truth, Qi Daolin said. I fucking swear, Shahao cursed inwardly. During Shahao's relaxation time, he went back to Supreme Being Tao right alone, looking for it based on what he remembered. However, it seemed quite a bit different from the first time. The great mountains were majestic and imposing, but they were too cold and cheerless. He trudged along, and in the end, he found an ancient stone staircase, but it was all cracked apart and caved in, tattered to an unbearable degree. He suddenly raised his head, and then his expression went rigid, standing petrified there. Where was that majestic mountain gate that towered into the clouds? Weeds grew tall, creating a scene too desolate, enough to drown one out. Meanwhile, this place's broken walls were in ruins, rubble laying everywhere, recounting a bleakness and decline, as well as sorrow. What place is this? Shahao was sure that he didn't go to the wrong place, but it was completely different from what he saw the first time. The entrance building that towered into the clouds like a mountain was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was only wild grass, as well as cracked foundations of buildings, rusting nails, debris, and broken pillars. He stood at the side of the broken walls and used his hands to touch it. Sinister flames immediately surged, and there were still powerful symbols that hadn't disappeared, indicating that this place truly did used to be incomparably glorious. There were world-shocking formations protecting this place. There was no way this place collapsed with the passage of time. From the remains, this was clearly the result of a great battle. I originally thought I'd joined some glorious great sect, but I never expected that even the mountain gate was razed to the ground. I've truly been fooled badly. All of the proof pointed at the fact that he had been fooled, that this had nothing to do with Goddess Academy. Even though he was aware of this a while ago, he always felt that Supreme Being Tao right shouldn't be that bad either. Who would have expected that this great sect that didn't seem that bad had already been wiped out? Shahao walked inside, ascending the other mountains. They were similarly filled with old trees and tall weeds. The giant heavenly temple wasn't there at all. There were only ruins and ghost flames, cold and desolate. After who knew how much time had passed, he unexpectedly heard voices. This was a group of youngsters that walked over from outside the mountains, approaching the mountain gates. Do you see? It is right here. There are still quite a few ruins left behind, someone said, guiding the way and explaining to the others. Shahao was stunned. From their conversation and way of talking, it completely sounded like they were visiting a historical site, a place that retold stories of the past. Look, this small tattered mountain gate, back in the day, towered into the clouds. However, it was still crushed and destroyed in the end, someone said. So this is Supreme Being Tao right? It seems like it wasn't bad, and that it was definitely glorious in the past. A young lady said, wrong, it was a small tattered mountain gate to begin with, and now is what it was originally like. A youth with his hands behind his back said. In the distance, Shahao didn't feel so good. Regardless, he was currently still Supreme Being Right's sole disciple, or its great disciple. When he heard them ridicule this place, he felt a bit upset. I feel like this supreme being Dao right should have been quite imposing in the past, that young lady said. Junior Sister Shiro, you shouldn't fantasize. This place doesn't have any glory, and instead a widely spread bad reputation. It can even be said that this little poor sex people are infamous. That young man laughed and said. He had a pair of antlers on his head, and while looking at the one leading the way, he said, we just came. So I must ask Senior Brother Liu to explain to us. Junior Brother Liu is too polite. Senior Brother Liu said with a smile. Meanwhile, when Shahao heard this, he was completely stupefied. Were they talking about Qi Daolin? Can you guys imagine? This person was chased after by the experts of every sect, making the entire world his enemy. How rotten of a person do you think he has to be for this to happen? There was a sentence that was used to describe him in the past. So vile there is festering boils from heads to toe. He really is quite the character. There is such a bad saying. Someone asked, do you see these mountain gate remains? In the past, it was so grand and imposing. However, do you know where it all originated from? Senior Brother Liu said while laughing. Where did it come from? Stolen from other sects. This was originally Natural Luck Academy's decorated archway, but in the end, it was carried away one night and brought here, Senior Brother Liu said. The group of people were stupefied. There was even something like this. Do you know what his explanation was? He said that he cherished his memories of Natural Luck Academy, and that was why he seized their mountain gate over, all because he cultivated there before for a short period of time, said Senior Brother Liu. Everyone wanted to laugh, but they were deeply shocked at the same time. That kind of person was even Natural Luck Academy's disciple. That isn't all. He was even our Goddess Academy's disciple. A senior sister said, what did he do before in our academy? In the distance, Shahao felt disgusted. That old thing was quite the scoundrel himself, yet he even had the nerve to scold him. Do you see the remains of the enormous palace on that mountain top? Rumor has it that he stole that from the Celestial clan. It was originally named Celestial Hall, and it was also because he reminisced about his past sect that he carried over that well-known place here. Someone continued to explain what. Everyone's eyes widened, feeling a bit speechless. He had even entered the Celestial clan and did this type of bizarre thing. It isn't just the Celestial clan. In the past, this Tao Master entered more than 10 great sects in total, and in each case, he became a traitor, running away after stealing the knowledge of his masters, said Senior Brother Liu. Then, he added, this is only what we know. There are still a few great sects that are too embarrassed to talk about him. Another senior sister added, can you guys imagine? Those dozen or so great sects were all those at the very peak, ancient inheritances that are on an incomparable level. They overlook their area and intimidate over 100 provinces. Everyone became stupefied, feeling that this person was a bit hard to understand. Hey, brother, did you also come to see this small tattered mountain gate? Someone asked him. He raised his head to look at him. With an expressionless face, he said, this is my sect gate. What? Ha ha, there is still someone that entered a small tattered sect. Are you stupid? The group of people surrounded him, pointing while commenting. They looked at Shahao like they were looking at a freak, laughing endlessly. Shahao's face darkened, feeling extremely disgusted inwardly. He was actually swindled into this kind of Tao right. He felt like someone might, as well just smash him to death. This was too humiliating. Once he walked out into the world, there would definitely be people pointing at him and looking at him in disdain. One can imagine what it will be like then. Perhaps everyone would be shouting and trying to chase after him to beat him up. Now that he thought about it, no wonder Qi Daolin asked him if he heard of his name before. Turns out this elder had a guilty conscience himself. It really is quite a surprise. There was someone who still entered this sect. Could it be that Tao Master Qi ran away himself? He hasn't appeared for so many years already, yet someone still calls themselves a disciple. You are definitely someone who tried to join my Goddess Academy selection, but ultimately failed, right? Senior Brother Liu said. His chin was slightly raised, his attitude a bit arrogant. It was because those that could enter Goddess Academy were all the elites of different clans. Those that failed, in their eyes, were naturally all losers. Those that succeeded and those that failed weren't even on the same level. Work hard, I have faith in you. Who knows, you might become our junior brother next year. A 16 or 17-year-old young lady spoke. She was extremely arrogant, like a little peacock that was spreading its tail. Xiahao felt rather out of sorts. He clearly passed Goddess Academy's most difficult trial and made it through the heavenly staircase, yet now, he was being ridiculed by the very same academy's disciples instead. Enough, let's all return to where we came from. If you don't need anything, don't disturb me, and don't even think about making a mess in my supreme being Dao right. Xiahao said with a darkened face. Oh my, he even has a bit of a temper. Lu Ming mocked. The 5-colored deer horns on his head shone. Many people roared with laughter. They all looked down on him. Right, there was a grand construct here before. How exactly did it fall? Someone asked. When everyone heard this, they immediately diverted their attention, no longer looking at Xiahao and instead focusing on this problem. Senior brother Liu said, rumors has it that when it was time for this inheritance to replace the old with the new, Qi Daolin was chosen. However, it was precisely then that great enemies attacked this place. The old sect master made the decision then to have Qi Daolin leave, saving his life. Wu, there are some news that I've heard. Rumor has it that the great enemies that besieged that inheritance were terrifying beyond imagination. Another senior brother said with a soft voice, who were they? I heard that Immortal Palace's most ancient figure awoke from his archaic slumber, and then he invited several other of the most powerful figures to move out together to attack this place. Everyone gasped. What kind of place was Immortal Palace? They never exceeded 5 members, yet they overlooked the world under heaven, intimidating everyone, both past and present. It's best if we don't talk too much about these old matters. A senior brother warned, feeling that loose tongues might cause a lot of trouble. Senior brother Liu said, rumors has it that after Qi Daolin was sent away, he originally wanted to look for his senior's inheritance, but he ended up empty-handed. In the end, he began to steal from all the different masters to strengthen himself. A bit understandable, Jing Xiao said, hey, junior sister, you definitely cannot pity him. He was indeed unlucky when he was young, but look at what he did later, angering man and God alike, absolutely despicable. Senior brother Liu stressed, right, look over there, isn't that a pair of copper rust? Someone pointed at a mountain peak. It was covered in green color, all copper rust. Qi Daolin had visited Immortal Palace before and stole a copper house to use as an outhouse. Everyone became speechless. They began to understand how badly this Dao master bore a grudge, as well as how much of an exotic flower he was. Senior brother Liu seemed to have thought of something and said, several thousand years ago, Qi Daolin was prompted by a sudden urge, truly appearing here once before to instruct a few disciples. In the end, what happened? Everyone was curious. In the end, they were harassed by the disciples of every sect, and they all abandoned Supreme Being Dao right, never appearing again. It really was miserable, Senior brother Liu said, and he even looked at Xiahao with ill intentions. Didn't they say that they weren't actually taught by Qi Daolin, and instead that someone discovered a part of Qi Daolin's inheritance? That's incorrect. 2 of them were personally taught by him, but in the end, they were beaten up quite miserably by the disciples of each sect. They directly left and never returned. As Xiahao listened to their discussions, he discovered that there seemed to be some other things that Qi Daolin wished to keep a secret. Xiahao didn't place his attention on them and instead thought about other things. If he walked under the world with Supreme Being Dao Right's name, would he become like those 2 seniors, be pursued by the disciples of every clan? However, no matter how bad it was, could it be worse than if he exposed his true identity? During these past few thousand years, there were a few who came here looking for opportunities as well, claiming to be disciples of this sect to occupy the peak, but in the end, they were all beaten up miserably. Senior brother Liu said. There were a few older students who had ill intentions as they looked at Xiahao. Laugh my ass. All of you better get lost. I am going to say it again, this is my Dao right. Xiahao said, is that so? Your temper is quite great. Since you consider yourself a disciple of Supreme Being Dao right, then it'll just be like the old rules of the past. Senior brother Liu said, what old rules? Lu Ming was eager to give it a try, obviously to deal with him, put him in the same state as those seniors of his, make him run away with his head covered and disappear. Senior brother Liu said. There were even those that added, we have to spread the news as well. Then, the disciples of every sect will come. Watch me then. Lu Ming took action. The 5 colored antlers on his head shone, and an expanse of bone texts shot out. However, under everyone's shocked eyes, with a gabbang sound, a horn came off, appearing in Shahao's hands. It immediately gave everyone a fright. Shahao took action, blasting the people until they flipped over. He searched them one by one for flesh goods. Loud cries of terror immediately sounded from this place. Seniors were lying to us. This is clearly a terrifying inheritance. Juniors, this really is a shoddy inheritance with a bad reputation, but we never said they were weak. Back then, only when the powerful disciples of every sect took action, did they defeat those few inheritors. A senior brother explained. In the end, apart from that female disciple named Jing Xiao, the others all had a piece of meat sliced off. Then, they all tumbled down the great mountain while screaming their heads off. You seem like your character isn't that bad, not looking down on Supreme Being Dao, right? So you can leave. Shahao waved his hand. What are you called? Jing Xiao's face was a bit pale as she asked. She felt like this person was even more strange and terrifying than that legendary Qi Daolin. Instead of yelling killing and beating up, he yelled about eating and drinking, treating everyone like food. Supreme Being Dao Right's great master disciple. Shahao said. Finally, this place became quiet. Shahao swept away his gloomy mood, and then he began to happily start a fire. He washed the antler, luan meat, flood fragon tassel and a large pile of other food clean, and then he began to slow cook them together. Shahao was annoyed. In the end, he said with a soft voice, what if their masters come looking for me after I eat a few vicious beasts, and beat them until they are screaming? Don't you still have me? As long as I am still free and unfettered in this world, who dares to touch my disciple? I will bring down disaster onto all of their disciples. Qi Daolin said in an extremely domineering manner. Shahao didn't say anything and looked at him. This elder looked like he possessed an immortal aura and Dao bones, but right now, he was like a pain in the neck, like an old hoodlum, you promise. For example, if I go wander around in Goddess Academy, their clan's upper levels wouldn't deal with me. Qi Daolin waved his hand and said, I just came back from that place. They owe me a favor, and now, they completely promised me. You are someone from Supreme Being Dao, right? So no one will rashly deal with you. Soon after, Qi Daolin felt regret, inwardly twitching his lips. This fella really knew how to provoke others, not allowing others to be worry-free. No, I just wanted a chance to sneak in. I need the tribulation crossing divine lotus. Shahao said, lacking in confidence, nonsense, aren't you just testing me? Qi Daolin stared at him. Then, after thinking about it, he said, all right, take this. Go to that immortal pond, when you have the chance, and bring that Dao companion back along the way. What? Shahao was stupefied. He looked at the black metal tile in his hand. This is Goddess Academy's thing. By holding it, you can visit the divine pool without restriction, said Qi Daolin. Shahao was quite doubtful. He looked at Qi Daolin like he was an idiot, as if he definitely wouldn't fall for his tricks. Get out of here. You still aren't going to go. Qi Daolin was furious. In the end, Shahao headed for Goddess Academy. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.